Everyone, go ahead and get started and just recall that we're doing these meditations right now. We're kind of on this topic of the sufferings of the happier realms or the um, general sufferings of samsara. It almost sounds like a contradiction to have suffering in the happier realms. Or I guess it's our perception that they're happy, our perception that samsara is a happy place. So we just do our um, posture check, just checking our posture, whether we're sitting in a chair, on a cushion, or we have a condition and we can't even sit in a chair or a cushion. Maybe we have to lay down in bed. That's fine. And we just scan from our toes all the way up to the top of our head and just making sure we're comfortable and relaxed. So releasing any tension in our feet, our ankles, our calves, our knees, all the way up our thighs, releasing any tension that we might have in our hips, the lower back, all the way up this long spinal cord. And especially our shoulders. A lot of tension is held here, a lot of stress. We just try to relax it just a bit, as well as our neck, and even any tension that we might have in our facial muscles, around our eyes, our nose, our jaw. Then we bring our attention to our breath. This inhale that we can feel coming through our nostrils, down into our lungs. Our lungs are expanding, the torso is expanding. And then we slowly exhale and push all that air back up and out through our nostrils. So just take a minute to watch our breath. bring to mind our motivation and thinking about these um, happier realms or samsara, and thinking about all the sentient beings, all the beings, all the our friends, our family, all the animals, insects, and just bringing to mind all this suffering, all the suffering that they're going through, that we are going through. We have these fleeting moments of happiness, but mostly just suffering moments, mentally, physically. And so when we think about all of those beings out there and think about that there's suffering and I met the Buddhist path and I've learned about the cessation of suffering. And many of those beings haven't. Most of them haven't. So with this thought that may I become enlightened, may I be that being that helps those sentient beings also achieve enlightenment. Because if I'm not going to do it, who's going to do it? So we have this motivation that we take on the responsibility. We don't look for someone else to do it. So this thought, I myself alone, will lead all sentient beings to enlightenment. So over the last few weeks, we've been meditating on these general sufferings of the happier realms, sufferings of samsara. And so we looked at the suffering of birth, suffering of aging, suffering of sickness. And now we'll look at the suffering of death. Because we age quickly and we're bound to die, right? So it's useful to imagine ways, how could we die? We might meet a sudden death, or it might be a slow one, a slow one with a gradual physical worsening. And we get into bed one last time and medicine will no longer help us. It doesn't have any use. Um, Having prayers said and pujas offered, they also won't prevent death. And those that look at us, they can see that we're close to death. And we ourselves, we understand that. I think many of us had this experience recently with Mommy Max. She she got into bed one last time, and we could see she was close to death. And with the little interaction that we had in verbal communication, she told us she was close. So we can imagine that there's this point where there's no more hope of living, and our mind is full of sorrow. And it doesn't matter if we're home or in the hospital. And then we have our relatives, they come, they visit, they cry, they make us cry. And a lot of these tears, they're from our present suffering, and also from this fear of what's going to happen. So we can imagine this suffering at this moment of this uncertainty. And I think we have that now, even in where we're relatively healthy. So just imagine when you're not healthy. And some people, they have no chance to speak when dying. Some are unconscious, but some are able to pronounce a few words. They tell their spouse, look after the children, or something like this. Because at present, we can speak normally, we can speak freely, clearly. But close to death, the tongue becomes hard and blue, and it becomes difficult to move. Or even if one can move it a little, the sounds that emerge are not really understandable. And then we see that the person we're trying to uh, speak to, they don't understand us. And then this makes us even more frustrated and sad that we lose this ability to communicate. I can't imagine what it's like, because right now I can communicate freely. I can tell people how I feel. And then there's a moment where this is not accessible. This freedom of speech is is no longer. And similarly, when others try to speak to us, even if they speak right into our ear and their voice seems to come from very far away, and we can't, we're not able to grasp the meaning of what's said. So we can't convey any communication. We can't receive any verbal communication. And then as hmm, this visual faculty, it degenerates. And the people that are around our bed, they seem to be very far away in a remote place. It's um, it's as if we're looking up at them from the bottom of a deep hole. So as the elements of the body, they're gradually absorbed. The body's solidity, its moistness, its cohesion, the heat, the um, power of transformation, motility. So these various signs they manifest. So the nose, it becomes smaller. The mouth dries up. The eyes, they become fixed, kind of fixed and staring right into space. Then the breathing becomes difficult. Um, the exhalation is stronger, while the inhalation is weakened, and eventually uh, the breathing stops. And one recognizes that they're we're being separated from friends, relatives, possessions, everything that we hold dear. And having this uh, cognition, having this realization, and it brings pain, it brings suffering or sorrow just to the mind. It arises, this separation. And then one also has this regret that comes up about mistaken actions that we've committed or failure to make best use of this precious human rebirth. And then spirits can gather around and they're um, can try to make us die as quickly as possible and steal our remaining life for themselves. Or we may experience sign of our future destiny. And um, this can be seen in can be seen in the dying person from the sounds that they make or the facial expressions or um, the way the legs and the arms are moving about. So to avoid this regret at the time of death, we have to spend all of our time doing worthwhile actions as much as we can and mindfully avoiding the mistaken actions. So not just avoiding those mistaken actions, but mindfully avoiding the mistaken actions with intention. Because when we reach the point of death, then it's too late. We can't engage with any more action. And then for a Dharma practitioner, it's better to die alone, not surrounded by the friends and relatives or pets, because they tend to create a disturbance and um, frustration arises. And when one is alone, then one can contemplate the Dharma and one can keep the mind rather tranquil, calm, free of these attachments, free of regrets, and free of conceptualizing. So as Milarepa said, uh, without the vigil around my corpse, without lamination over my death, if I could die in solitude, the aim of this yogi will be fulfilled. So while it's hard to practice like Milarepa, we should try to do it um, in accordance with our capabilities. As much as we can see that this life is meaningful. So we slowly bring the meditation to a close, and when we think about all these contemplations that we've engaged in, and we dedicate for all the sentient beings that we motivated us to have this meditation. All the suffering sentient beings, ourselves suffering in samsara, everyone suffering in the happier realms, the general sufferings of samsara. We dedicate that. May their suffering come to an end and never fruition and never repeat again. Thank you.